For 300 Seconds at Gettysburg, I'm licensed battlefield guide Chris Army, and I'm here with licensed battlefield guide Britt Eisenberg, and we are standing on the Monterey Furnace Road. The Monterey Furnace Road is the road that is being taken by the wagon train of supplies led by Major John Harmon. And the wagon train is making its way. As you can tell, this is a very, very rugged trail. And imagine, it's night, you can't really see anything, it's pouring down rain, and you got thunder and lightning going on, and you're having to get these wagons over this trail, trying to get on the main road, which is the Emmitsburg-Waynesboro Turnpike. So as the wagon train is trying to make its way towards that Emmitsburg-Waynesboro Turnpike, on that turnpike you have George Custer pushing back Emacs Confederates who have had a brief fight with them over on Monterey Pass, and now they're pushing their way back towards this intersection. So Britt, tell us a little bit about these two wagon trains and the fighting that kind of intersects not too far from where we're standing.
Sure. So after Custer's boys finally pushed back Emacs men off of Monterey Pass itself, the fighting is going to move towards an area that centers around the toll house on the Emmitsburg-Waynesboro Turnpike, which is actually behind the camera down the slope from the roadway behind us here, the Monterey Furnace Road. And there's another important obstacle here, really more so for Kilpatrick's men than for the Confederates who are trying. Well, it's important for them too, because it helps to slow down the Federal advance. But there's a little stream just to the south of where Chris and I are standing, known as Red Run. Today when you come out to the park and you see this little stream, you probably wouldn't think anything of it, if you even notice it at all, especially if you're driving through this area. But because of that terrible weather, the stream is overflowing its banks, and it's a significant obstacle for George Armstrong Custer's men from Michigan. They've got to get across somehow, and there's only one small bridge span to do so. The water's up over the banks. So what do you think the Confederates are going to do? They're going to use this as a serious defensive line. Tanner's gun is pulled back behind that bridge, again towards a toll house that actually still stands. It's a private home today. But he's going to fire off what remains of his ammunition.
He's got 3 or maybe 4 shots left.
Yes, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
But by this point, General William Grumble Jones has been able to call up support as well. You've got some North Carolinians from Beverly Robertson's brigade here, some Virginians as well, and they're going to kind of bolster this defensive line beyond the run. Custer begins to spread his troopers out. The 5th Michigan is going to move to the right of the Emmitsburg-Waynesboro Turnpike on foot, and at one point there's an interesting thing playing out here in that Custer's men of the 5th Michigan are advancing alongside the actual wagon train, but because of the horrendous noise from the storm and those shots that are ringing out, they have no idea until they actually stumble into the roadway with these guys. At the bridge, it takes a lot more pressure. Custer calls for help through Kilpatrick. They bring up elements of the 1st Ohio Cavalry, the 1st West Virginia Cavalry. They are going to get across the bridge, establish a bridgehead, so to say, and slowly fan out and drive these Confederates away from the toll house. And what happens then is these troopers will start to push these wagons off the roadway. They'll start to set some of them on fire, and they'll begin working their way down the mountain. Now, Kilpatrick doesn't know this, but he's really hit the tail end of this reserve train, unfortunately for him. He's probably hoping that he's hit the head so he can work his way backwards towards Fairfield. That's not the case. But they're going to do an awful lot of destruction. Now, if you'll recall, at our previous stop, I mentioned that a civilian guide named Charles Berman leads the 1st Vermont Cavalry under Addison Preston via a different route through the Raven Rock Pass to get down towards Smithsburg and Leitersburg to try to cut the train off. They do make it down there. It takes a significant amount of time. It's not until somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning on July the 5th that they actually get there. And they find the train. Preston orders his men to move towards Hagerstown, doing as much destruction as possible to the train. But then he realizes if he goes too far, he's going to be cut off, and he doesn't know what he's going to run into down that way. So he orders the men back from Hagerstown back towards the Monterey Pass. And what ends up happening is upwards of 9 miles of train, of Confederate train down this mountainside are going to be set ablaze or destroyed. As one civilian from Waynesboro put it after this event occurred, They said, "We were treated to a 4th of July spectacle unlike any we had ever seen before. We can only hope that when these gentlemen return, they come with more peaceful pursuits." It's estimated that between 200 250 wagons are destroyed. Kilpatrick's going to write in his official report that he captured 1,500 prisoners during this action. Whether he's stretching the truth or not, what you've got to remember is there are a lot of teamsters with these wagons. There are also wounded soldiers with these wagons, so it might not be too much of a stretch. He captures a lot of prisoners. The Union cavalry troopers who are up here with elements of 3 different brigades suffer about 100 casualties. That's killed, wounded, and missing or captured. So it's a nasty little fight. It takes place in the middle of a thunderstorm, and it occurs on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. The only battle in which that occurs through July 4th into the early morning hours of July the 5th. Again, 9 miles of wagon train destroyed. Kilpatrick is now cut off in the valley. He knows he's in a very precarious position, so he's going to bring his command down further south towards Smithsburg, where they'll end up running into Jeb Stuart's cavalry on July the 5th. But Chris, we're very lucky to be standing here. You know how I am about these original road traces, to stand on the spot where these things happen. Can folks come out here today to enjoy the same thing that we're doing here, the same history?
Yeah, they sure can. So the Monterey Pass Park has roughly about 5 miles worth of walking trails. That includes the parts of the Monterey Furnace Road, the historic walking trail. So you can come on out, you can spend some time on the trails, you can follow some of the action. They have a great little museum. Check their website to see the hours the museum's open. They have some interpretation, some artifacts in there that are really neat, so definitely worth a visit. Covered the basic action out here, right?
Yep.
And gives you a little bit of a primer to come on out here and see and learn more and spend a great day. In this very, very hot day, this shade feels really great.
It's authentic, right? Yeah.
It definitely feels authentic. So for 300 Seconds at Gettysburg, I'm Licensed Battlefield Guide Chris Army. This is Licensed Battlefield Guide Britt Eisenberg. Thanks for joining us today.